The House They Tried to Steal. I was on the polished marble floor of my father's rented event hall, 8 months pregnant, one wheel of my chair still spinning beside my face, when I realized my water had broken. The band was still playing near the champagne wall. Somebody had dropped a glass, and the sharp little pieces were scattered under the gold uplighting like ice. Above me, my father stood with his hands clenched at his sides, breathing hard through his nose, because I had refused to sign the quitclaim deed he had pushed into my lap in front of 112 guests. He thought humiliation would make me obedient. It almost did. For half a second, while the pain shot through my spine and across my belly, I was 7 years old again, small and useless in his eyes, a daughter he couldn't display, a daughter who made rich people uncomfortable, a daughter who had cost him money and sympathy and the perfect family photograph. He had been trying to stage since before I could remember. My mother, Marianne, covered her mouth, not because she was afraid for me, but because the caterer had turned around and the mayor's wife had seen everything. My brother Ethan stood behind my father in his custom navy suit, one hand still holding the pen he thought I was going to use to give him my grandfather's house. Then my wrist vibrated once. The emergency recording had started. My name is Claire Hollis. I am 31 years old, a wheelchair user, an accessibility compliance designer for federal construction contracts, and, on that Friday evening in Boulder, Colorado, I was the woman my family had spent 2 decades underestimating. They saw the chair first. They always had. They saw the medical bills, the ramps, the modified van, the appointments, the braces, the quiet pauses when nerve pain climbed up my back like a hot wire. They never saw the audit trail. That was their mistake. I was diagnosed with a progressive spinal disorder when I was 6. My mother used to tell people I was delicate, as if the word made her sound compassionate. My father, Richard Vale, never bothered with soft language. To him, I was a defect in an otherwise expensive display case. Richard was a senior development consultant in Denver, the kind of man who wore Italian shoes to charity breakfasts and used words like legacy and family name as if they were legal instruments. Whenever clients came to our house, I was sent to my room with the television low. Ethan was never sent away. If he wanted lacrosse gear, ski weekends, or tutoring, my parents found the money. If I needed a new cushion for my chair, we discussed sacrifice. That was the word they used. Sacrifice. The only person who never spoke to me that way was my grandfather, Samuel Hollis, my mother's father. Grandpa Sam smelled like cedar chips, pipe tobacco he had quit smoking 20 years earlier, and the lemon oil he used on every piece of furniture he restored by hand. He had a 1-story ranch house outside Fort Collins, with wide doorways he had widened himself, a back porch facing 3 crooked cottonwoods, and a kitchen table scarred by 50 years of coffee cups and family arguments. He called me his architect because I noticed load-bearing things. A narrow hallway, a dangerous doorway lip, a family joke that was not a joke at all. He put deeds, bills, and repair estimates in front of me and asked, "What matters here, Claire?" I learned to look for signatures. I learned to look for dates. When Grandpa Sam died 4 years before the night my father flipped my chair, he left me the Fort Collins house, appraised at $472,600, and a medical trust funded with $165,000. The will was clean. The trust terms were precise. The house passed to me alone, because Grandpa had watched my father treat me like a liability, and Ethan like a prince who only needed a larger kingdom. At the reading, Richard did not cry. He stared at the attorney, then at me, then at the wheels of my chair. I remember the smell of stale coffee in that small conference room and the low hum of the fluorescent lights above the table. My mother folded a tissue into a square without using it. Ethan whispered, "That's insane." My father said nothing for almost a minute. Then he looked at me and said, "A house with acreage is wasted on someone who can't even walk the property." Nobody corrected him. That silence became the family language for the next 3 years. My mother called it concern. Ethan called it fairness. My father called it correcting an old man's sentimental mistake. They began with soft pressure, the kind people can deny later. Ethan had been accepted into an executive MBA program in Chicago. Ethan needed housing. Ethan needed a professional wardrobe. Ethan needed tuition help, conference fees, a leadership retreat in Miami, a winter residency in Switzerland that apparently counted as education because the invoice had a university crest on it. My mother cried every Thursday for 11 months. "Your brother is trying to build a future," she would say. "You have Caleb. You have that house. You have enough." Caleb is my husband. He is a paramedic, a former Army medic, and the first person who ever looked at my wheelchair like it was information, not a tragedy. On our third date, he measured the doorway of a restaurant before I could ask. On our wedding day, he fastened the small pearl buttons at the back of my dress with hands so steady I almost cried before the ceremony started. He begged me not to send the first transfer. I did it anyway. $8,000 for Ethan's relocation deposit, then $12,000 for tuition, then $6,400 for licensing materials. Even though I later learned the program had no such fee, over 32 months, I transferred $84,730 from Grandpa Sam's trust and my own savings into accounts my parents controlled. Every payment was a peace offering. Peace never came. By the time I became pregnant, I had finally started to understand what Caleb had been saying all along. People who only love you when you pay them are not family. They are creditors with childhood photographs. So I stopped. My last transfer was on January 18th for $3,200. On February 19th, my father emailed a spreadsheet titled Family Equity Plan, listing Grandpa Sam's house as an underutilized asset to be transferred to Ethan for $1. I printed it. Then I opened a red binder. In accessibility compliance, every claim needs support. Drawings, photos, timestamps, emails, revisions, inspection notes. I knew how to build weight. Into the red binder went the trust documents, the will, the property deed, every bank transfer, every email, every voicemail transcript, and every text where my parents described the money as temporary, family support, reimbursement, or my duty. Then I found the first thing that made my hands go cold. A title search showed a rejected attempt to record a durable power of attorney in my name at the Larimer County Clerk's office. It had my signature. It was not my signature. The date was March 12th at 10:42 a.m. I was at a prenatal appointment in Denver at 10:42 a.m. Caleb had taken a photograph of me in the waiting room because our son had kicked so hard my whole belly shifted under my sweater. The clinic's electronic check-in record put me there at 10:19. The county rejection notice listed the submitting email as rvale.consulting@protonmail.com. My father had tried to make himself my legal agent. I did not call him. I called an attorney. Her name was Nadia Brooks, and she had the calmest voice I had ever heard outside a courtroom. Her office smelled like copier toner and peppermint tea. She examined the documents for 12 minutes without speaking, then tapped the forged power of attorney with the back of her pen. "This isn't family pressure anymore," she said. "What is it?" "Potential identity theft, attempted real estate fraud, and if they used interstate email or banking to advance it, possibly wire fraud." There it was, the federal doorway. For the next 7 weeks, while my belly grew and my spine punished me for every hour of stress, I stopped reacting and started collecting. Nadia sent preservation letters to the county office and the notary whose stamp appeared on the rejected document. The notary replied within 4 hours. She had never met me. Her stamp had been reported missing from a mobile signing kit in Denver 2 months earlier. That went into the binder. I installed a call recorder that announced itself automatically under Colorado law whenever calls came in. My mother hated it, which told me it was working. I forwarded every threatening email to Nadia. Caleb backed up the files to 2 encrypted drives, one kept at our house, one in a safe deposit box at Alpine Credit Union. Then, the accounting turned uglier. Ethan's tuition invoices did not match the university portal. His housing reimbursements ran through my father's LLC, and my mother's caregiver claims listed appointments I never attended. One tax summary even counted $42,000 of my pain as deductible family support. They had used my disability as a tax strategy. I copied everything. The invitation to Ethan's graduation gala arrived on ivory cardstock with raised navy lettering. Richard had rented the conservatory hall at the Flatiron Club outside Boulder, with glass walls, marble floors, and a terrace facing the mountains. The guest list included developers, bank officers, county commissioners, and a retired judge. At the bottom, in my mother's handwriting, was one sentence. "Please don't make this difficult." I knew what that meant. Nadia told me not to go. Caleb told me not to go. My OB, who did not know the full story but knew stress was a problem, told me to avoid unnecessary conflict. I heard all of them, and I understood all of them. Then my father sent the draft quitclaim deed. It transferred Grandpa Sam's house from me to Ethan Vale for $0, citing natural love and affection. It included a prepared notary block. It included my full legal name, my date of birth, and the last 4 digits of my Social Security number. My chair suddenly felt very still beneath me. I sent my father one text. "I will attend the gala. Bring whatever documents you believe are necessary." It was a false surrender. The night of the gala, I wore a plain black maternity dress, flat shoes, and the silver medical alert bracelet Caleb had upgraded himself with a silent SOS shortcut. Inside the left side panel of my chair, under the cushion seam, I carried a slim recording device with a fresh battery. In the bag hanging from my handles, I carried copies of the deed, the forged power of attorney, the bank summary, and Nadia's letter instructing me not to sign anything under pressure. The red binder stayed in Caleb's truck. It was not time yet. The conservatory smelled like orchids, champagne, and floor wax. A jazz trio played near the staircase. Ethan moved through the room like a candidate on election night, shaking hands, laughing too loudly, letting people admire the degree he had paid for with money that was supposed to protect my health. My father found us near the dessert table. For the first hour, he behaved. He introduced Caleb as Claire's husband, the paramedic, with the same tone he used for parking attendants. My mother kissed my cheek and whispered that I looked tired. Ethan leaned down, patted my shoulder, and said, "Big night for all of us." I smiled. That was all. At 8:17 p.m., I asked Caleb to get my lumbar brace from the truck. That part was not staged. My back had started burning, and the baby was pressing low enough to make me breathe carefully. Caleb frowned, but I squeezed his hand. 2 minutes, he said. I know. He left through the glass doors. My father moved before the doors closed behind him. Richard crossed the floor with Ethan beside him, and my mother floating behind like a witness who hoped not to be named. He placed a leather folder on my lap. The music softened between songs, and for a moment I could hear the ice machine behind the bar dropping cubes into a metal bin. "Sign it," he said. I looked at the folder. No. His eyes flicked toward the guests nearby. A bank president, 2 women from the club board, and the retired judge had all turned slightly toward us. My father lowered his voice, but not enough. "Don't embarrass yourself." "I'm not signing Grandpa Sam's house to Ethan." Ethan laughed once, sharp and fake. "It's not your house in any meaningful way, Claire. You don't need land. I can actually build something with it." "You mean sell it?" His smile thinned. My mother said, "Please, your brother has worked so hard." I looked at her. "With my money." That was when the air changed. A public family lie can survive almost anything except a precise number spoken in a quiet room. My father felt it. Ethan felt it. My mother certainly felt it because her eyes darted toward the mayor's wife near the hydrangeas. Richard leaned down, one hand gripping the armrest of my chair. "You ungrateful little burden," he whispered. "I carried you for years. I paid for everything you couldn't do. You owe this family." My thumb slid over my bracelet. 1 press, 2 seconds. The device vibrated. Recording started. "Say that again," I said. He did. Not those exact words, worse ones. He spoke about the chair, the medical bills, the house, the trust, the family name, the way Ethan deserved a clean start, and I had no right to hoard assets when my body had already taken enough from everyone. He said my grandfather had been manipulated by pity. He said Caleb had married me for the property. Then he pushed the pen into my hand. Sign. I let it fall to the floor. It made a tiny click against the marble. That sound undid him. My father seized the frame of my chair and yanked it sideways. He was not trying to move me, he was trying to make a point. But anger is bad engineering, and my chair was not designed for a 200-pound man pulling one side, while my body weight leaned forward and my center of gravity was already compromised by pregnancy. The chair tipped. The room turned white and gold and glass. I hit the floor on my side first, then rolled forward, palms scraping marble, belly tightening so hard I couldn't breathe. For one impossible second, the jazz trio kept playing. Then the trumpet stopped mid-note. A woman screamed. Warm fluid spread beneath my dress. My son was coming, and my father looked annoyed. Not afraid, annoyed. "Get up!" he snapped, as if humiliation had a reverse gear. My mother said, "Richard, people are watching." That was what she said. Not call an ambulance. People are watching. I pressed my palm against the floor and felt something sticky where champagne had spilled earlier. The smell of alcohol and orchids and floor wax mixed with the metallic taste of fear in my mouth. I heard Ethan say, "Dad, not here!" And it was almost funny, because even then the location mattered more to him than the injury. Then Caleb came back through the doors. I have seen my husband in emergencies. I have seen him kneel beside accident victims on black ice. I have seen him speak to frightened children while blood soaked his sleeves. Calm is his natural state under pressure. That night, calm became terrifying. He crossed the room, dropped to his knees beside me, checked my breathing, my belly, my pulse, then looked once at the wheelchair and once at my father. He did not yell. He did not threaten. His voice came out low and flat. "Who touched her chair?" No one answered. I whispered, "He did." Caleb looked at Richard. "You are going to step back now." Richard opened his mouth, probably to say something about family, property, misunderstanding, or status. He never got the chance. The first uniformed officer entered through the main doors at 8:23 p.m., followed by a second officer and 2 paramedics with a stretcher. My bracelet had sent location, audio, and my emergency medical profile. It also sent the live recording to Caleb. The officer's name was Marta Ruiz. She smelled faintly of rain and wintergreen gum. She took one look at me, one look at the fluid on the marble, and began clearing space with the kind of voice people obey before they decide to obey it. The paramedics moved fast. Caleb gave them my history without stumbling. 31, 34 weeks pregnant, spinal disorder, fall from wheelchair, possible abdominal trauma, ruptured membranes, escalating contractions. He held my hand while they transferred me to the stretcher. Richard tried to follow. Officer Ruiz stopped him with one palm. "Sir, stay where you are." "This is a family matter," he said. She looked at the overturned wheelchair. "Not anymore." As they rolled me toward the ambulance, I turned my head and saw my father's world begin to crack in public. The retired judge had stepped away from him. The bank president was on the phone. Ethan stood pale and motionless, still holding the leather folder. My mother stared at the floor like the marble might open and give her somewhere better to stand. Outside, the mountain air was cold. Inside the ambulance, everything became monitors, straps, blood pressure cuffs, and Caleb's voice repeating that I was safe, that our baby was moving, that I needed to breathe through the contraction and stay with him. The siren sounded distant, almost underwater. I remember the chemical smell of antiseptic and the little squeak of the stretcher wheels when we hit the hospital bay. Our son was born 14 hours later. Owen Samuel Hollis came into the world at 10:41 the next morning, 4 pounds 11 ounces, angry enough to make the NICU nurse laugh. He needed oxygen support. He needed monitoring. He had one perfect dark curl pressed to his forehead and a grip strong enough to lock around Caleb's finger like a promise. I did not see my father that day. I saw a detective. Detective Aaron Pike came to my room at 3:15 p.m. with Officer Ruiz and a tablet containing a copy of my emergency recording. The room smelled like hospital soap, warm plastic, and the burnt coffee Caleb had bought from a vending machine and forgotten on the windowsill. My body felt split between pain and exhaustion, but my mind had become very clear. Pike asked if I was willing to make a statement. I asked Caleb for the red binder. He left, returned 20 minutes later, and placed it on the rolling hospital tray beside my untouched lunch. The binder looked too bright against the beige blanket. Detective Pike opened it with the careful expression of a man who had expected a family dispute and found a case file instead. Page 1 was the will. Page 2 was the deed. Page 3 was the rejected power of attorney. Then came the bank transfers, the false invoices, the email from my father demanding the house, the tax summary, the forged notary block, the call transcripts, and the gala recording time-stamped from 8:18:06 p.m. to 8:24:51 p.m. Caleb had added photographs of the wheelchair, the marble floor, and the leather folder recovered by Officer Ruiz. Detective Pike stopped on the page showing my father's spreadsheet. "Family Equity Plan," he read. Nobody laughed. The investigation widened quickly. Paperwork has memory, IP addresses, timestamps, routing numbers, printer codes, and the path a lie takes through a system. Within 9 days, investigators tied the forged power of attorney to Ethan's laptop, my parents' home IP address, and a stolen notary stamp. The false invoices traced back to a template service billed to my mother's card. Then the IRS got interested. Nadia explained it while Owen slept in the NICU. State prosecutors cared about the assault. County investigators cared about the deed. Federal agents cared about wire transfers, identity documents, tax filings, and whether my disability trust had been turned into a fraud machine. My family had built their felony case around my name. Richard was arrested first for assault, coercion, and attempted exploitation of an at-risk adult. He posted bond within 48 hours and released a statement calling the fall accidental and me emotionally unstable. It sounded polished. Then the gala video surfaced. A catering employee had been filming the champagne wall when my father grabbed the chair. The clip was 19 seconds long. His hand, the yank, my fall, his face above me. Truth does not need a long runtime when the camera angle is clean. The internet believed its eyes. By the preliminary hearing, my father had lost 3 contracts. Ethan's job offer was delayed, and my mother had started sending messages through relatives about forgiveness and misunderstanding. I saved those too. The hearing took place on a Monday in Boulder County Courtroom 4B. The courthouse smelled like wet wool, old varnish, and coffee that had been sitting on a warmer since sunrise. Caleb sat beside me with Owen's hospital bracelet looped around his keychain. Nadia sat at the counsel table with the red binder, now reinforced with extra tabs because one binder had become 2. My father wore a charcoal suit and the expression of a man offended by consequences. Ethan sat behind him. My mother wore pearls. The prosecutor played the emergency audio first. My father's voice filled the courtroom, colder and uglier than I remembered, because pain had blurred some of it for me. The judge listened without moving. I watched Richard's shoulders stiffen when he heard himself call me a burden. Then came the video. 19 seconds. No music, no argument, just motion, impact, silence. My mother lowered her head. Ethan stared straight ahead. My father whispered something to his attorney, and his attorney did not whisper back. When I testified, I did not cry. That surprised some people, I think. They expected shaking hands, a breaking voice, a wounded daughter asking why. But by then, why had become irrelevant. I had asked why for 25 years and received nothing but invoices. So, I gave dates. I gave amounts. I gave account numbers ending in 4429 and 7716. I gave the March 12th timestamp from the county clerk and the 10:19 a.m. prenatal check-in that proved I could not have signed the power of attorney. I explained the red binder because the judge asked why I had prepared so many documents before the party. I looked at my father when I answered. Because this was not the first time he tried to take something from me, I said. It was only the first time he did it in a room full of witnesses. The courtroom went still. That stillness was not victory. It was recognition. 2 months later, the federal indictment arrived. Richard Vale, Marianne Vale, and Ethan Vale were charged in connection with attempted wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit real estate fraud, tax fraud, and exploitation of a disability trust. The state assault case remained separate. Nadia warned me not to expect everything to move quickly. Justice has a calendar problem. But paperwork is patient. The federal agents were not dramatic. They arrived early on a gray Wednesday with warrants, laptops, evidence bags, and polite voices. A neighbor later told me she heard my father yelling while agents carried out computers and a box labeled Ethan MBA. That label became an exhibit. My mother blamed my father. Ethan blamed both parents. Richard called it estate planning, but the emails, metadata, and tax returns did not misunderstand, and I did not disappear. The plea negotiations took 4 months. During that time, Owen came home from the NICU. He slept badly, ate fiercely, and made tiny goat noises whenever Caleb changed him. My body healed slowly. Some days, my spine punished me for surviving. Some days, I woke up angry enough to taste copper. On those days, I wheeled to the back porch of Grandpa Sam's house and listened to the cottonwoods move in the wind. That house saved me more than once, not because of its value, though the value mattered. Not because of the land, though Ethan had wanted every inch. It saved me because Grandpa Sam had understood that safety is not sentimental. Safety is structural. Wide doors, clear title, money protected by terms, records kept in order, a place where no one could threaten eviction and call it love. The sentencing hearing for the state assault case came first. Richard's attorney spoke about stress, misunderstanding, community service, and a lifetime of professional achievement. My father stood and read a statement that used the word regret 4 times without ever saying what he had done. He said he regretted that emotions ran high. He regretted that family tensions became public. He regretted that I interpreted his actions as hostile. Then the judge asked if he regretted putting his pregnant daughter on the floor. Richard froze. For the first time in my life, my father's mouth opened and produced nothing useful. The judge sentenced him to 18 years in state prison for aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury to a pregnant victim, with additional penalties for coercion and attempted exploitation to run concurrently. The courtroom did not gasp. Real life rarely gives villains the soundtrack they think they deserve. My mother made one broken sound. Ethan looked at me. I looked back. The federal case ended 6 weeks later. Richard received additional time to run partly consecutive, though the final structure was something only attorneys could describe without blinking. Marianne avoided prison through a cooperation agreement, but she lost the house in Cherry Creek, most of her savings, and the social circle she had protected more fiercely than her daughter. Ethan pleaded guilty to conspiracy and identity theft related to the forged documents. He received 42 months in federal prison, 3 years of supervised release, and restitution obligations that would follow him long after his expensive suit stopped fitting. At his sentencing, Ethan cried. He said he had always felt pressured to succeed. He said Dad made it seem normal. He said Mom handled the paperwork. He said I never understood what expectations felt like. That almost made me laugh. Instead, I asked to speak. The courtroom smelled like dust and printer toner. The microphone made a small popping sound when I adjusted it. I had Owen's tiny sock in my pocket because he had kicked it off in the car, and I had held onto it like a charm. I did not look at the judge first. I looked at Ethan. You were expected to succeed, I said. I was expected to disappear. You were given money and called promising. I was given pain and called expensive. But the difference between us was never pressure. The difference was what we chose to do with it. He cried harder. Maybe he understood then. Maybe he only understood consequences. Either way, the record heard me. My mother wrote me one letter after everything ended. It came in a cream envelope with her careful handwriting and no return address, though I knew exactly where she was living because restitution paperwork is not private to victims. She had rented a small apartment in Lakewood over a laundromat. She wrote that she had been afraid of my father for years. She wrote that she thought keeping peace was the same as keeping family. She wrote that when she saw me on the floor, she froze because all she could think about was the room watching. Then she wrote the only honest line she had ever given me. I chose the room. I folded the letter and put it in the back of the red binder. Not because it healed anything, because it belonged with the evidence. People ask whether revenge felt good. Parts of it did, but real justice is quieter than people expect. It is a corrected deed, a restored trust account, a locked gate, my name on the tax records, and a baby monitor humming while Caleb makes coffee at 5:12 a.m. It is not answering the phone. It is not explaining why no means no. Today, I live in Grandpa Sam's house with Caleb and Owen. The back porch ramp is new cedar, sealed against the snow, built to the exact slope I specified because I still notice load-bearing things. Caleb jokes that I inspect our own home like a federal site review. He is not wrong. Owen is walking now. He wobbles across the porch with both arms out, furious at gravity, determined to master it anyway. Sometimes he falls and looks at me, waiting to see whether the world has ended. I smile and tell him to try again. He does. Every time. Last week, I rolled through the hallway Grandpa widened for me years before I owned the house. The floorboards creaked in the same places. The kitchen still smelled faintly of lemon oil after I cleaned the table. On the wall near the back door, I hung a small framed copy of the final corrected property record. Not the court judgment, not the headlines, the deed. Because that was what my family wanted to erase. My name, my ownership, my right to safety, my right to say no and have the law stand behind the word. They thought a wheelchair made me easy to move. They forgot I had brakes. And they never understood that the strongest person in a family is not always the loudest, the richest, or the one standing in the center of the room with everyone watching. Sometimes, the strongest person is the one keeping receipts in silence, building the record page by page, waiting until the truth is heavy enough that no one can lift it off the table. My father taught me that appearances can control a room. My grandfather taught me that documents can outlive a liar. My son taught me that survival is not the end of the story, it is the beginning of a safer one.